Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Will Kern from Endless Entertainment in the house, and so excited. Episode 10. It has been a solid 10 weeks already, and time has been flying by so fast. I feel like I say that every single week. And this week, we have an absolutely awesome set of guests, as usual, and we're going to get to that in just a second. Before we jump in, if you guys want to take a second, we're all about getting as many people in here to have a great conversation. So if you can take 2 seconds really quickly and post on Twitter, there's a little tweet button and Facebook button over there. If you want to click those, share this with your friends. We want to get as many people in here as possible. And you may be wondering, why do we want to get as many people in here as possible? Well, the great thing about hashtag event icons is unlike normal podcasts or, radio shows that are kind of one way where you basically get a chance to hear someone ask a question and then you kind of hear their answer and it just goes back and forth, but you don't get to interact. This show is all about you, the audience, and you guys get to ask and get your questions answered. So what you guys throughout the show, if you have any questions at all, if you type /Q in the question pane, just like I'm about to do right now, like this, that's how you basically ask a question. And it's going to go in our panel over on the left-hand side, and we'll make sure that we answer it. So throughout the show, ask as many questions as you guys want, and our awesome guests will be here to answer them. Type /Q, or feel free to just post in the chat pane. So without any further ado, we got to get this started because it's just an exciting week. I have some of my great friends over from a absolutely awesome company called ReedPop. If you ever heard of ReedPop, basically these guys run the show of pop culture conferences. I know we talk a lot about Comic-Cons and stuff like that at on this show, and everyone knows that I'm a huge comic book nerd with my DC comic stuff paraphernalia everywhere. But these guys are the kings when it comes to it. These guys produce everything from New York Comicon, C2E2 to Chicago Comic-Con, Emerald City Comicon in Seattle, just absolutely huge, and many more shows, which I'll let them talk about for sure. So I got to get these guys in here. So first off, we have Mr. Lance Fensterman. I want to make sure I get that 100% right. Lance is actually the global vice president of ReedPop. So he's the guy that's the boss in charge of everything. So he'll be able to talk a lot on strategy and everything related with that. Next up in the house, my awesome friend who I have actually got to work with Jim on Emerald City Comicon last year, Jim Demonakos, which ironically, as much as I know Jim, I haven't gotten to say his last name very often. So I was really excited about that today. And Jim's an absolute all-star, now primarily heading up all the merchandising and creative over at ReedPop now, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
He's also in charge of beard growing. Look at that thing. Touch it for the people. Jim, touch it for the people. They want to see it. Oh, yeah.
Amazing. And last but not least, Mr. Mike Armstrong, the badass of operations, who literally, how many shows are you managing now, Mike?
Let's see, 4? Just 4.
That's so many. So while most of us are worried about one event, you got 4 of them going on.
No, it's not that bad.
So thank you guys so much for being here. It's an absolute honor. It's been so awesome to work with you guys in the past. And I just want to say thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Thanks for letting us.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having us.
No problem. So I just want to jump in. We're going to start off with the question I start off with every single show because everyone's super curious. I want to know what got you guys into the events industry. We'll start with you, Lance.
It was a work release program from prison, and I couldn't get a job at the convenience store, so I had to get a job, and this is where I ended up. So it's more like a parole officer thing than anything else. But for a lot of people, it's a great career choice. For me, it was more just about either, I could have my freedom and work for events, or I could just stay where I was. So, no, I don't know. I stumbled into it randomly and sort of built ReedPop with the help of a lot of other people. So mostly it was about being able to do something that we wanted to do the way we wanted to do it. So it was about freedom, actually.
Awesome. And then could you tell people a little bit about so how did the first, con start for you?
Actually, to be totally fair, the prison story was because Armstrong told me that this shirt looked like I was an escaped prisoner. So I kind of did that for him, actually. So sorry, what was your question, Will?
Tell us about the first con that you kind of started. What And was it a pop culture con, or was it, what was like the big passion? Because I know you're a Lego guy. Was it like a Lego con?
No, it was actually, so the very first show that we were all involved with was New York Comicon in 2006, which was sort of a disaster in that, like, we sold more tickets than you could let people in. So people that had tickets couldn't get in, and people that didn't have tickets did get in, and it was pretty much an unmitigated crazy disaster, but in a great way. And that people were excited about it. So we knew we had something to build on. And then we slowly figured out enough of what the hell we were doing to be able to get to this point. And now we have to keep figuring out what the hell we're doing,
Awesome. Very cool. And we're going to hear more about the challenges of growing con. And, for those who don't know, New York Comicon has just surpassed San Diego Comic-Con as the largest comic book convention in North America. So we'll talk a little bit about how do you manage growth with all this awesomeness happening. So we'll get to that in a sec. But Jim, I tell them the story. How did, for those who don't know, Jim actually started at Emerald City Comicon. And tell us the story of how you got into that.
It was just, I guess, like bad life choices really is. I started a comic book store first, and I thought, what a great way to lose a lot of money. And so I did that and was like, I wonder if I could take what little money I have left over and just sink it into something else that'll lose money. So why don't I do a comic book convention? And that was like overall kind of the genesis of Emerald City Comicon.
We're really building ourselves up here, aren't we? Why is anybody watching this? We got three losers that didn't know what the hell they were doing with their lives, and now they're on live with us.
I only the icons.
Isn't that the definition of the internet, though? Like,
it's true.
For me, it was, I had started traveling to a lot of conventions just as a fan, even before I was a retailer. And then as I started with my shop, and went out to stores or shows in San Diego and Chicago and kind of around the country. And I would always come back to Seattle, and there was just never anything comparable to those kind of events in Seattle. And so I decided that it would, like, why not me? Why not just put it together? How hard could it be? And that was like the words I've been regretting my entire life. So it's actually not hard. That's the funny thing, as we all know, it's actually not hard. It's just a lot of work. And if you're willing to put in the effort and the time, like, you can do it. Hard is all just a definition of how you expect, work to go. Like, it just doesn't magically become New York Comic-Con. It doesn't magically become Emerald City or C2E2 or any of our other amazing events. It's just, we kind of bust our asses, and then you get the kind of shows that you get. So awesome. That's how I started.
Awesome. I love it. And then Mike, so obviously you're on the back end, making all the operations and everything like that happen. Did you ever see yourself doing events in your life?
I guess maybe I saw myself doing events, but I don't think I ever would have fallen into this crew. It was kind of dumb luck how it happened. I had joined Reed on the B2B side, and I was working on like pharmaceutical shows and casino shows, and I desperately needed money, so I volunteered at the New York Anime Festival in 2009, and I told an off-color joke to Lance, and he's like, "Oh my God, we need you on this team."
Actually.
So
he told a filthy joke, and I was like, "I hire this guy."
Awesome.
Let that be a lesson, kids.
So as soon as we acquired the Star Wars business, Lance brought me over to handle sales on Star Wars, and then since then I've taken on a multitude of.
And then what got you originally working for Reed Expo?
God, I needed a job. I worked in minor league baseball for 3 years and was making $12,000 a year, and you just can't live on that.
We offered him 15.
This was. I've made it up to 18 over the last 7 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't see my email, did you?
But no, I mean, yeah, it just kind of happened, and it's been a fun ride. I think I was employee, maybe 9, and by the end of this year, we're going to have upwards of 48 or 50 people. So, it's been good to kind of catch on with a team like this early, and it's been a fun ride.
Awesome. And Mike McGowan, obviously we're going to have to censor this a little bit so I can keep my PG rating on iTunes. Mike would know very much about that. Is Mike McGowan asks, what is the off-color joke and what do you would you recommend using it on job interviews?
Oh, God, I'm sure it involves some sort of genitalia. I can't remember the specific joke, but yeah, I mean, it certainly wasn't appropriate if I was dealing with some other sort of quote-unquote senior executive, but with Lance, it worked just fine.
Awesome. And so, I kind of highlighted a little bit about a couple of the shows that, you guys mentioned Star Wars Celebration. We talked about Emerald City, New York Comicon. And I mentioned a couple earlier at the beginning of the show, but I want people to understand exactly how many shows you guys actually produce because it's outstanding the amount. What is the number that you guys are at so far?
So as of last week, we're up to 30 shows in 9 countries around the world. So last week we announced that we're doing a big Star Trek event, like the official kind of Star Trek fan convention for the 50th anniversary of the show and the brand. And that was our 30th event. But we've got almost as many shows, in fact, I think more actually outside of the United States at this point than we have inside the US. So the last few years we've spent a lot of time growing globally, which has been an interesting adventure, meeting geeks of all different stripes from around the world. So.
Awesome. And so I'm going to challenge you guys because there's 30 of them. Hey, Lance, maybe you can answer all of them, but what can you name all of the shows that you guys produce? So then, because I don't think some people have heard of these shows, but they don't realize they're under the Reed umbrella.
Who wants to try?
We just did this as a team.
Was it we
just did this as a team. That we did a quiz in one of those. Yeah, we did in one of our weekly meetings. I know I got 28 of them, and somebody else got 29. But yeah,
okay.
It's hard to get all 30.
Let's go for it. So we got New York Comic Con, right? Yeah.
I'm keeping track.
All right, New York Comic Con, C2E2.
All right. Emerald City. Special edition.
We have
PAX East, PAX Prime, PAX South, PAX Dev, PAX Australia, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth.
And when you're saying just location,
Adelaide.
these are all like Melbourne Comic Con, correct?
Oz Comic-Con.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry.
One more. You missed one of those.
Okay,
no,
so
you missed
India.
You missed an Oz Comic-Con. Sydney.
You know what?
Okay.
Okay. India, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi,
and Pune.
Jim, you got anything?
Pune,
which is the new one we have in
and Hyderabad.
And Hyderabad.
Okay.
Yeah, Hyderabad. Vienna, Paris,
Beijing, Shanghai. BookCon.
BookCon. Don't leave Asia yet.
I guess Book X.
Star Wars Celebration.
Singapore.
Indonesia. Twitch.
Star Wars Celebration.
Mission. Star Trek.
Star Wars Celebration, for those who don't know.
Yep. You got one left.
Yep.
Done. 30.
So
yeah, go team.
Everyone give some props to these guys. Just shower it on them. Because just the amount of diversity. So you got a UFC event, Star Wars event, Comic-Cons of all kinds, right? TwitchCon, gaming conferences with PAX. So these guys literally all kinds of pop culture for sure. Just absolutely amazing. So what is your favorite event to do? So Lance, is it New York Comic-Con for you because that's your baby?
We might all have the same answer, but I really like the Chicago show. C2E2 is just an awesome show. It's just really, really, really fun. And the fans, I'm from Minnesota, so the Midwestern fans are awesome. They're grateful, they're appreciative, they're enthusiastic. Also, you cannot when you leave the convention center, you cannot get to your hotel room without passing a bar, which is just a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, it's right there, and the whole comics community is hanging out in this one bar in the Hyatt, and it's just, I don't know, it's just a cool show. Dig it a lot. But it's hard to say because, like, the international stuff is, like, a totally different can of worms. Like, the Vienna show we launched this year was also, like, just really organic, really cool. It was we kind of expected it to be a small show, and we sold out The energy was amazing. Like, they're all kind of unique, but Chicago's fun. We always have fun there and get drunk.
Awesome. And then Jim was saying in the chat.
Like my easy out is Emerald City, just because I've been doing it for 14 years. What I'm loving is going and seeing all these other events that I'm now getting to be part of, and enjoying seeing like how they're being done by someone else, by honestly, like this great group of people, because up until now it'd been us and a pretty small team, and now being able to say, oh wow, like we're getting to touch all these people inappropriately has been it's been great. No, just being able to go to a lot of shows. I love, in the past year I've gotten to do New York, Chicago, Celebration, a couple of the PAXs, and they each have such a different flavor that it's kind of hard to choose. But for now, I guess I'm just going to default to Seattle.
Awesome.
Such a cop out.
I know.
And Mike, what about you?
I like anything we do in Seattle, so I like Emerald City. I like PAX West, and I like, just to echo Lance, C2E2 is just a fun show. I mean, for most of the team, they weren't around when New York Comicon was launched. Only a couple people were there, but a lot of us who have been there for a while were there when C2E2 launched, and that's a show that we feel a lot of ownership over, and it's a good show. But I love anything we do in Seattle, and C2E2 they're fantastic shows. They're all good, but those are the best.
Definitely love them all. That you guys do such a great job on all the shows. So Mike McGowan had another question for you guys, and we talk about you have to have shows all over the world at this point. So his question is, do you guys work remotely, or are you guys in an office? I already know the answer to this question, but I figured that you guys can speak first.
Who wants to field that one?
Armstrong.
Well, it feels like we work remotely because a lot of us are rarely in the office. But we do work out of Connecticut. We work out of Norwalk, Connecticut. There are a few people who are remote. They might reside in Seattle and work out of the Penny Arcade offices over there. But for the most part, we've got a home base in Norwalk. But we're all over the place all the time at all these different shows. So it feels remote sometimes.
And then we're building teams in other countries. So we have a pretty substantial ReedPop team in Australia that was actually on the chat a minute ago. There's about 10 dedicated people down there in Australia. There's about 12 out of an office in Beijing. There we go. There's a handful in Vienna, a handful in Paris, a handful in Singapore. So there's about 40 of us in the U.S., and there's another 40 plus scattered around the world in different offices.
Awesome. And how is that for, working with, going from, some of you guys are in person, right? How do you guys work together across, the entire world? Is technology really helping you guys out on that communication front, basically?
Considering it takes 40 minutes to figure out how to log into this thing, I'm not really qualified to answer that.
Jim, you're the techno geek over here. So.
Oh my God, I've run dark. No, I'm just
No, it's great. Like, I mean, I think you tend to do a lot of email. We hop on the phone when we need to, but essentially it is very much a kind of email system for most of our communication outside of the office. Inside of the office, it's kind of an open floor plan. You can get over and kind of hear people talking, or just hop over and have a conversation. And so that's really nice, and being able to kind of get like immediate feedback on things, and just kind of enjoy ourselves in the office, because you can it's pretty easy to goof off, I feel. So
I mean, you guys seem like a really exciting bunch. Do you guys ever find that, with how much you like when we were in the office too, we like to geek out over, we come back on Thursday morning, we're like all talking about Arrow or whatever it is that came in. Did you guys ever find that it's tough to work because you guys are in such a fun environment? You guys to produce such fun events? Mike?
Yes and no. I mean, we've got a good group of.
Like, it's not a fun environment. That's just because he's not here right now.
Yeah, I'm not here. I'm in my basement. We've got a lot of people who are really committed to successful events, and they understand what these events mean to the fans. So a lot of people are focused on their work and setting their fandom aside, and making sure that what events we're producing are really going to make these fans happy. So I think we do a really good job at that. There are some people who, frankly, aren't fans who do a really good job of separating it. But we've got our eye on the prize most of the time.
Awesome. And so just really quickly, sorry that so many questions running through my head. So really quickly, what would you guys say is your number one go-to fandom thing? So for me, it's DC Comics, obviously. Lance, is it Legos for you?
Yeah, no doubt. I was looking around to grab a Lego something, my mouse pad. But yeah, absolutely. I spend a ridiculous amount of money on Legos. So I was moving this one time out of an apartment, and the last thing I always move are all my Legos because, they're very sensitive and treasured. And I got into the elevator, and this lady's like, "Oh, you must have a son." I was like, "Yeah, because that's less weird than a grown man with thousands of dollars of Legos cradling him like a baby."
Awesome. And then Jim, go ahead. I know what yours is.
Oh, yeah, how about you tell me?
Oh, don't make me do it.
That's right.
Because now I'm conflicted because I'm like, wait, I thought I had it, but now I'm like, it could be. So, and it might have changed, but you go ahead. I'm gonna make sure I got it right. I'll see if I was right.
So I actually don't necessarily do the Marvel DC thing. I'm actually just comic books is my I read comics every week. A huge comic book guy, and that's my default fandom.
I remember you saying you're a big Dark Horse fan too. Right?
Yeah, I love Dark Horse. I love Image. I read. That's the thing. That's why I don't necessarily separate it. I read everything.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Cool. He's the agnostic fandom. Mike, what about you?
I love beer, and I would say I would say of any of the comics, I'm an Image Comics guy. I never really got into the superhero stuff as a kid, so I'm in my basement right now and playing with all my stacks. But most of the stuff you'll find me buying is Image.
Cool. So, sorry, I totally go off topic. I talk fandom stuff with you guys all day long, but people are here to find out more about the events and, how you guys pull off these. Truly, this is a show about event icons, and you guys are creating some of the all-encompassing shows that are getting named top 5 events in the country, in the world. What do you guys think makes your events so iconic? And go ahead, anyone.
Michael?
God damn it, stop leaning on me.
I'm actually on another call right now, so if you could just put some filler in here.
I think it's that, and this might sound like lip service, but I guarantee you it's not. We really do care about the fans. And, all of us might be fans of something, and we might not necessarily be fans of the source material that we're dealing with, but all of us understand what it's like to be a fan of something. So we recognize the passion that our fan base has for our events, and we recognize the expense that they go through, not only time, but money that it takes to get to our events. So we really don't want to disappoint them. If somebody is saving up all their money all year for New York Comicon and they come to New York Comicon and one thing makes them have a bad experience, that really affects us. I think we, of the 168,000 people that come to the event, we get maybe 100 emails of people who are disappointed, and I think that affects us more than the 167,900 people who had an amazing time. So we really want to make sure that every single fan that's coming to the event has the best possible experience that they can.
Drop the mic. Lance, you guys have anything you want to add to that?
I don't think. I think just to echo what Mike said, a lot of our decisions start fan first. As we're talking about adding new features or creating better experiences, all of them center around what the fan experience is going to be, and I think that separates a lot from other events, and a lot of that is actually just figuring out, all right, so maybe something doesn't necessarily make profit, but does it make the show a better experience? And that's something that we always consider kind of moving forward each year as we try to make it better, because at a certain point shows are sellout shows like New York Comicon. You just can't once the tickets sell out, and then that's all there is. So on the outside of that, what can we do to make the experience while you're at the show that much better? And that informs a lot of our decisions.
Awesome. Lance, for you?
Obviously what the guys just said, but I also think that we work hard to invest in the shows and make them unique. I think there's a lot of shows out there that, particularly that are like a Comic-Con or say Comic-Con, that are actually kind of nostalgia shows where they bring in, sort of former TV actors or things, and you end up paying to get in to pay to get an autograph or a picture. And that's really the substance that those shows are about. And we have that if you want that, but we actually try to really make it that when you walk in the door, 98% of what you experience at a show like New York Comicon or a show like C2E2 is free, right? There's literally hundreds and hundreds of hours of panels and programmings and screenings, and there's a massive show floor that doesn't just have people selling stuff like dealers. It actually has big brands that are like showing off new products and toys and games, and publishers that are there to show off new works and bring in artists. And I think it's a well-rounded experience, and we really believe that's important, that it's not just about, no, pay your $40 to get in so that you have the right to buy a t-shirt or a old comic book or to get an autograph from somebody. That's not really the kind of experience that I don't think we believe in, and that we believe is sort of fun and well-rounded and fan-first. So we try really hard to make our events interesting and unique, and cool content. Like, we started doing a lot of things with like beer and comics, where we have great local craft breweries that are getting paired up with a comic artist, and they're talking about, the art of creating. And you have artists making labels for the beers, or you have great chefs that are coming in to work with artists and do panels to talk about, the blank page is the same as a blank, an empty plate, and they're both creating to fill that white space. And like, I think that's kind of cool, forward-thinking stuff that is respectful of our audience's level of intelligence. And I don't know that you see that from every organizer out there. And I hope it's one of the things that when you see another killer event by ReedPop, at the bottom of a page, you're like, you're going to get something unique and special it's going to wow you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, first, congrats on your guys' success, because it's the show. I mean, the attendance numbers don't lie. I mean, you look at New York Comicon just surpassed San Diego as largest, and Jim with Emerald City Comicon sold out every single year. Like, feels like instantaneously the second tickets go on sale.
You can still buy tickets right now.
You can still buy tickets right now, so go buy tickets. Well, you guys have expanded more.
Yeah, Thursday and Friday. Let's do it.
Which is exciting, super exciting. So I'm curious. So, I mean, maybe we talk about, I'd love to hear more about, how do you balance growth and the logistics of everything? So, for example, with Emerald City, you guys added a fourth day to, give more chances for the fans to see the show floor, to see more panels and everything like that. How do you guys deal with that growth, especially with New York Comicon growing as fast as it's growing, to allow it to keep allowing fans to have access to it, to keeping up that great customer service and that great attendee experience? What are you guys doing that you think are like mainstays within ReedPop that allow you guys to maintain that growth? Mike.
I thought that was the Jim.
I think a lot of it is actually just building on what we. So let me start over. I think a lot of it has to do with the learning that we do every year. Because the thing about the shows is that what we're trying to do is not present a cookie cutter experience year after year. And a lot of that is taking what we've seen worked or did not work at a show and improve upon it and make sure that if we can create better experiences, because the thing that we spend a lot of time on is actually reading all the feedback that comes in from our fans. And this is a big part of how we can figure out what our actual attendees want to see more from us. And I'm not sure if that necessarily answers the question, but I think what we do very well is learn from both our mistakes and our successes and try to encapsulate that in the following event as we continue to grow.
Awesome. Lance, anything you want to add to that?
I'll just say it's hard. It's really hard to grow quickly, to grow these shows bigger and still make them like good, personal, fun experiences. It's hard. Like, how do you build a personal experience for 170,000 fans? You know what I mean? And you have this kind of balance you're trying to walk all the time, which is more people want to come to the show than there are tickets to the show. So you want more people to come in. But for the people that do get into the show, they'd prefer there be a lot less people there. You know what I mean? So how do you strike the balance of getting as many people, to enjoy a show like New York Comicon or Emerald City, right? Yet the more people you let in some ways, the less people they're going to enjoy it once they're in. It's a really difficult balance to strike. And we don't always claim to get it right, but we care about getting it right. But it's difficult, and we want to keep growing, but we want to do it in a way that is good for people. And, sometimes we don't get it right. Sometimes they are too crowded or too busy, and we have to reassess that. But we think about it, we work on it. It is an obsession of ours, but it's actually quite challenging. It's one of the harder parts of what we do, actually.
Awesome. Any last thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I'll add to what Lance said. It's really frustrating when there's people who want to go to New York Comic-Con that we can't allow in just based on ticket capacities. We want everybody to be able to experience what we've put together, but unfortunately, it's just not possible. So that really stings when it's such a quick sellout and you've got people who've been coming to the show for years and years are just like, I couldn't get a ticket. We want everybody to be able to experience what we put on because we put our heart and souls into it. God, that sounds corny. I'm so sorry.
You're drunk, Armstrong.
So that's why you guys let him go home.
No, I have an ankle monitor right now. Actually, I haven't been to the office in weeks.
Is that wait? So is it like a state provided ankle tracker, or is it a ReedPop provided ankle tracker?
No, it's the county. They're not too thrilled with my recent conduct. So
the county.
So it seems like we actually have a ton of fans actually in the chat that are huge ReedPop fans that have been going to New York Comic-Con to C2E2 and everything like that. And I think a lot of them are curious about specifically things about the shows that you guys are, doing to bring things to the show. So are you guys, I know you're not allowed to talk about everything, but is there anything that you guys are allowed to talk about that you guys are kind of working on right now that's innovative or new or fresh that you guys want to tell the fans about?
MoonCon, the show on the moon.
So the question is, how do you deal with the anti-gravity or the no gravity scenario on a MoonCon? Tell me that.
It also makes cosplay so predictable.
Well, we've had a hard time selling tickets.
I heard Elon Musk got his ticket though.
Yeah, one guy. Luckily, tickets are. Yeah, I was gonna say luckily tickets are actually $2 million a piece. So all it needs is one.
All you need is one. But in all seriousness, is there anything you guys are allowed to talk about at all?
Lance.
Well, I mean, we've been talking specifically about a lot of things revolving New York Comic-Con that will start to come out over the next few weeks and months. But like Lance said, we're constantly trying to innovate and we're constantly trying to make the experience better for fans, and that takes a lot of hard decisions need to come into that. So over the course of the next few weeks, some things are going to come out that we've decided will benefit the fans overall rather than a few specific fans. So we've made some hard decisions and we're going to go forward with that on New York. But in terms of special secrets, I'm not exactly sure what will be
that was
divulged.
the most non-answer I've ever heard in my life.
Hey, I learned from the best. Right?
Well, we're going to be making a pretty massive announcement on C2E2 around a guest in not too long. We can tease that. We can't say who it is. Mm-hmm. We've got another show, at least one that will be launching somewhere else in the world pretty soon. We got a couple of other kind of deals like we did with Jim and his team that are coming up not too long. So no specifics, but I think more growth, more cool content. Seeing New York Comic-Con really kind of spread out across the entire city is a big goal for this fall. Bust out of the confines of the Javits Center. Lots of cool stuff and slightly more specific than that garbage that Mike just said.
Fair.
So now we're getting really, really specific questions from some of the people in the audience. So starting with Lawrence, and I think he brings up a great question, is there's so many pop culture cons out there, right? There's almost one in every city, it feels like now. How do you guys deal with competing with events? So, for example, they use Star Trek missions and Dragon Con as an example. How do you guys compete with events that are happening sometimes on the same weekend as you guys' events?
Oh yeah. Well, part of the problem is there's very few open slots. So what you think about is between like when the venue is available. So the Javits Center runs at about 90 to 95% capacity. So we have to figure out when the venue is available, and then we have to try and find the best weekend. So I think the question was specifically around, Star Trek Mission and that weekend, that Labor Day weekend, where there's a number of other shows going on. And I'll be totally blunt. We don't want to be the same weekend as those other shows. Like, that is not really in our best interest, nor is it in anybody else's best interest. But unfortunately, we don't get to decide when some of these venues are available. They run at most of the larger venues that we're dealing with run at pretty high capacity. So it's quite difficult to like get in. So it's about how we help people attend multiple ones. We don't really do that. I mean, like, we're not against it, but we're more so like, how do we, have people attend our event? But we're not against partnering, but it's not really necessarily easy or our role to maybe help figure out how people do multiple events. Our preference is there aren't multiple events on a given weekend, because that's not what we like. So
Totally. Do we want to answer that question in here right now?
Absolutely.
So the question from Pallard is SDCC for San Diego Comic-Con, for those who don't know, reports a unique total numbers 4 day. So a 4-day badge holder equals one person, versus the understanding that at New York Comic-Con reporting turnstile, which is 4 days, badge equals 4 people. And is that correct? So do you guys want to talk a little bit about the ticketing and how you guys measure your audiences?
It's pretty straightforward. Like, one ticket equals one ticket. A 4-day pass is one ticket. It's one person. So we don't actually turnstile any of our numbers. So if you buy a 4-day pass, you're counted as one person. If you buy a 3-day pass, you're counted as one person. If you buy a 1-day pass, you're counted as one person. We're rolling out a new 365 pass for the con that never stops. You'd be counted as one person, even though you came 365 days in a row. So one interesting kind of unique wrinkle about our existence is, ReedPop is an offshoot of Reed Exhibitions, which is a big trade show company. Reed Exhibitions is the offshoot of a really big company called Relics. And Relics is one of its primary business models is subscription-based data, okay, for professionals, lawyers, doctors, you name it. And because it's a subscription-based model that this, the parent company employs, accuracy of data, like circulation numbers or attendance numbers, is actually no joke. So we don't even have, like, if we wanted to make up our numbers or turnstile our numbers or fudge our numbers, we can't. Like, we would all lose our jobs for doing that, because they're very, very sensitive about the accuracy of that information. So we're pretty tight on our numbers. We don't fudge them. We don't inflate them. They are what they are. And one ticket is one person, no matter what kind of ticket it is. And there's a lot of pretty serious, like, internal controls that we deal with to assure, like, it's almost like an internal audit after every show, where someone else comes in and says, how many tickets did you sell? What types were they? And that's how we determine our numbers. So that was probably more than you wanted, but it's always different. Like, everybody reports numbers differently in this business. By differently, I mean most people inflate them. We don't actually have that luxury, even if we wanted to.
Well, I think that's a huge issue with the events industry in general. I mean, we talk about it all the time, especially we've talked about it, I think, with specific cons as well. But, definitely it's great to know that you guys are so systematic about it, because, I mean, that's one thing, too, is if you provide that awesome accurate data, it helps you guys make better decisions on it. If you really are saying 80,000 people are coming, what we found, for example, is that, so we say, oh, yeah, this event's going to have, so for example, I'll use a personal example. We used to have an event called the ASU Undie Run. When I was in college, we created literally a run where people took off their clothes and ran in their underwear. And we used to say 20,000 people came to it. Well, eventually, police, when we had to start hiring lots of more police, they started saying, well, we need to have way more police, because 20,000 people were like, well, no. That's our marketing numbers. We have like 5,000 people coming to it, and it became an issue because they didn't believe us, and they wanted to charge us for 20,000 people's worth of cops, and really we only had 5,000. So watch out when you start to inflate those numbers, people. It's bad.
I'll give you a different example, though. Like, on the PAX shows, we don't even bother. Like, we don't even report it, because it's like either like it becomes such a hassle almost, because then everybody wants to like debate it or discuss it, or somebody then wants to benchmark and be bigger. And it's like, either the show is awesome for you as a brand or as a fan, or it wasn't awesome. So does that number make it more or less awesome? You know, so it's kind of been freeing in there. We're just like, we don't even talk about numbers. Who cares? Like, you know, Bandai, was this show good for you? Okay, cool. Then we hope you come back. You know,
absolutely. Speaking of numbers specifically, again, to give people a sense of scale, how big is New York Comicon now?
Our announced attendance this past year was 168,000 fans, which doesn't include professionals, it doesn't include exhibitors, and it doesn't include artist athletes. So, yeah, those are tickets sold.
So, what's the number one challenge with, you said 168? 168,000 people. What is your number one challenge? Because for those who don't know, San Diego Comic-Con hit this threshold. They took over the whole city. They literally can't grow anymore because the city can't get any bigger. How do you guys deal with that issue where, you know, your con's still growing? You know, are you, like Lance was saying, you guys are seeping into the whole city? Are you taking over the whole city? Is there like Times Square set up, main stage, you know, that kind of stuff?
Not yet, but maybe soon. I mean, the hardest thing is that, you know, we've had a huge increase in the number of people who come to the event, but we haven't been able to grow the size of our main stage. You know, there's a lot of things that people want to do that just based on the scale of people who are going to be there aren't possible. So not everybody can get into every panel that they want to. Not everybody can see the same exhibitor that they want to. Not everybody can buy the same exclusives they want to. So Lance mentioned that, you know, we're moving into the rest of the city. Like, we took over the Hammerstein Ballroom last year. We're going to take over a few additional spaces within the city this year. So expanding the show outside of the city, giving people additional opportunities to see content they want to see, has always been the struggle for us. Also, with that number of people, safety and security is a huge issue for us. We want to make sure that our events are as safe as possible, which means that for New York Comic-Con 3 years ago, we introduced RFID, which was a hassle for a lot of people the first year, but I think now everybody recognizes the benefits that it has. We've started doing bag checks, which I think in this day and age, people recognize as something that it's a good thing to see. So, you know, just letting people see what they want to see and keeping people safe are the two biggest challenges we have with the event.
And I'll add to that with, you know, we also have New York Super Week, which is part of New York Comic-Con and lets us expand all the events we're doing. Like Mike was saying, there's the Hammerstein Ballroom, but there's other venues, and we're able to hold events outside of the show, so it can expand the experience not only from the time that you're inside the show, but it can continue. Kind of like, even though Lance was joking, it's like the 365 con. It's like, oh, we have something kind of happening for like the entire week of New York, and that way you're able to have all these additional experiences.
Absolutely. I'm curious to know, so we're talking a little bit about, you know, how do you handle when your audience grows? And, you know, today and age where technology is totally catching up to where we thought we'd all be in Star Trek. One big thing has been, and a huge trend, has been live streaming at events. It's first started with one camera in the corner, you know, just sharing it online. It was just constantly going. Now we have these elaborate, you know, a couple days ago, we had the guys who did the 4K stream for the South by Southwest, and they're becoming these elaborate productions. You know, are you guys doing anything on the live streaming element? And then Lawrence had a quick question about, as far as, are you guys monetizing in any sort of way? You know, how do you guys balance that, you know, need the ability to the cost with it, with the, you know, live streaming element and all that stuff, everything live streaming?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly do have live streaming at our events, and it's like Lawrence's question asked. It is becoming a source of income for us, and it's a way to offset some other costs. You know, we work pretty closely with Twitch TV on our PAX events, and now also our New York Comic-Con and C2E2 and the rest of the comic book events. So if you're not able to get a ticket to New York Comic-Con, but you still want to see the great content that's going on the main stage, and then other different interviews of people who are popping into the Twitch stage on the show floor, you can still access that content, and the more people who can see the content that are going on at our shows, the better. In terms of monetization, you know, we haven't really gotten to the paywall yet. I don't know that it's something we want to explore maybe later down the line, but we have been able to monetize it with sponsored content, with sponsored segments, with just traditional, you know, bottom third or advertisements running during the stream. So that's been a way for us to monetize, but it's also a way for us to fund getting the content to as many people as we can.
I think everyone's okay with that at some point. And then he followed up with a quick question as well. So I think this is a great question because I don't think I've seen this very often, is adding closed captioning and hearing impaired to live streaming. Have you guys looked into that element at all?
No, that's a great question, and I'm immediately going to send an email to our people internally who handle Twitch. So that's a great question.
Boom.
I appreciate it.
Awesome. See, there we go. There we go. We're making shows better just in the midst of event icons. Well, by the way,
right,
we have about 13 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions at all, this is your time to ask them. So if you want to hop in chat, ask your questions. And I think that Nick brings up a good question, which kind of goes back to a couple years ago about RFID technology with connection to social media. Do you guys want to talk? Do you guys want to speak to, I guess, what happened and how you guys kind of overcame that and everything?
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
The incident that shall not be named.
That's funny because Mike, you just tweeted out what a fan you are of New York Comicon. Did you do that yourself, or was?
Well, no, I tweeted out that everybody watching
that's
this
what it
is
was.
New York Comicon. Yeah.
So Nick experienced.
Oh, I'm glad we can laugh about this now.
So,
yeah, clearly not all of our decisions are the best decisions. And we got a little overzealous, and I think we admitted to it quickly, and we're never going to do that again. So we're yeah, shit. That was
I love that answer. Not all of our decisions are the best decisions. Yeah.
I think it's kind of I wasn't even around for that. So I just chimed in to make sure that you knew that I had nothing to do. No, but in all seriousness, I think that's actually part just to very much show you, we're human. We're just trying to make good events, and we sometimes mess it up, and that's just the way it is. There's no sugarcoating it. Sometimes we just don't make the right decision. We learn and we don't make that decision again, but sometimes, most especially Mike Armstrong.
What Jim was really saying is sometimes they don't make the right decision.
Yeah.
Listen, Fensterman. I was a lowly sales executive then.
Really great question from Nick, and thank you for bringing it up. And I think you guys definitely bring up, and being able to apologize, I think, is half the battle for most events. To flip side, to look on the positive side, you talked a little bit about two huge trends that are we've kind of earmarked for this year that have been going on. One is data, so having more data on your events. We talked about the attendance numbers, but also you guys are doing RFID, so you're able to collect more data. But also the security aspect of RFIDs as well, and being able to really make sure that people have legitimate passes and everything like that. Can you guys talk a little bit about how you guys are utilizing RFID for good to increase security as well as collect data to make your guys' event, more successful and even better?
Yeah, we've done, I think the past 2 or 3 years that we've done RFID was really trying to secure the building. And I think we've done that. And now that we feel comfortable with the technology and we feel comfortable with what it's been able to do for us security-wise, now we can start to play with it and take it for a little bit of a faster test drive because, there are so many other things that we can potentially do with it. A few things that we're working on is beacon technology, so that if you are near a certain part of the building or if you go and walk into a certain panel room, you can actually be served content via the mobile app based on a beacon triggering that you're nearby. So not only can we work with our exhibitors and sponsors to serve content to fans who are hungry for that kind of content, but we can also recommend things. Like if you've just gone to a Naruto panel and we happen to have a Naruto exclusive in our show store, as soon as you leave that panel, you can get a ping on your phone that says, hey, check out this flash deal on this Naruto t-shirt that's going on at the ReedPop Supply Co. store. So there's a lot of different things that we can do to not only serve recommendations to our fans, but also just to keep them informed of things that are going on at the show. So if a panel gets canceled or if a line is full, I really think that kind of communication is something that our fans need and that we haven't been able to deliver properly without that kind of technology.
Awesome. I love it. Any other things you guys want to add, Jim, Lance?
I think you said it well.
Awesome. Okay, so the last question from our audience that we're going to jump into, and then I have two final questions for you guys before we get out, because I know you guys are super busy, is that in the audience they asked about the consolidation of cons. So obviously, you guys you guys didn't find make all the Comic Cons. You had people like Jim join the team and everything like that. That after some acquisitions and some consolidations, and there's obviously other people doing that as well. For those who don't know how the cons are kind of working out there, so I think he brought up a really, really interesting question of the trend of seeing this happen, where you guys are able to take all the resources and experience that you guys have and grow these smaller cons or these bigger cons and make them even better. Do you guys think the trend of doing that is going to keep going, or I know obviously we can't talk too much about it because obviously a lot of it is confidential with you guys, but do you see that trend continuing to grow, or do you think that that's kind of ceasing to happen anymore? I think that was more for Lance.
Yeah, I think it'll continue. I don't think we've seen the end. I think it will continue, particularly outside the U.S. in other parts of the world, and I think you'll end up seeing a handful of sort of bigger players in the space. I mean, you already are in some ways, and I think that trend will continue. So it's interesting because 10 years ago we were really kind of alone in terms of professional organizer in this sort of space, and now there's a number of big entities, and some of them are doing really great work. And I think you'll see a few players holding a lot of the major sort of events, and I don't know what that'll mean for a fan yet. I think it might mean good things, like more organization, more investment, more professionalism. But it also is probably going to mean, some changes in cost structure and things like that for people as well. So hopefully it will mean more good than I don't want to say bad, but more good than changes and challenges. But that's just my opinion. So
that makes sense. And then I think one thing I wanted to bring up really quick, because and this will be my last question before I jump in the final two questions, is, Jim, I'd love to hear on your perspective, because, you started Emerald City all on your own, and then, you got acquired by ReedPop. Can you talk a little bit about how the ReedPop team is actually helping create that awesome experience that you started and growing it even more? And that, I think sometimes fans get a bad rap, like, for example, Anheuser-Busch just bought our local craft brewery down the street, Four Peaks, and everyone goes, oh, how dare they, like, they're sellouts, everything like that. And I think that sometimes can happen with a con as well. How is it a positive thing on your perspective?
I'm actually a prisoner here under duress. I don't. No, it's been awesome. No, to be perfectly frank, I think I'm really proud of what we accomplished on our own with Emerald City. The awesome part about being in with ReedPop is that we're able to take kind of the thing we were discussing earlier about learnings. Is there's a lot of stuff, especially from a scale point of view, that I had never even thought of, and those kind of things being able to be brought onto Emerald City continue to enhance the guest experience, because that's exactly the thing that we continue to talk about all the time, is what can we make better for our fans. So we can take things that are learned at C2E2 at New York and apply them to Emerald City. And even more so, or not even just more so, but as part of that, we can take the learnings from Emerald City from a team that has not been part of this kind of structure and say, hey, why are we doing things this way? I'm not saying our way is better, but let's at least look at it from this perspective, because we do it X and you do it Y, and maybe ours is better, maybe yours is better, but maybe more so the two of them together make for the best experience. And that's what's been really cool.
Awesome. All right.
Jim and I have known each other for 10 years, almost 9 years. And so, it's like, it wasn't like a stranger approached him on the street and said, hey, come here, I got some money. You want to sell me a show? We had a pretty strong relationship, and we talked about this idea for 18 months, Jim? I mean, it was like a long conversation about just how would it work? Would it be any good? How would things function? So it came pretty naturally, I think, right? I mean,
yeah, no, it's true. I think a lot of the discussion was around, like, you know, I feel like it's very important. A lot of the things that make the show what it is the team that you have, and being able to take that and translate it over to all of the other events. And that's been, it's been actually quite a really nice fit. And that's been really, really cool.
Awesome. So I have two final questions for you before I can let you guys. I know you guys are super busy. You guys got cons coming up and very, very soon. So the last two questions I have for you, we'll start with the first one, is if you had one single tip, just one tip to tell a planner how to make their planning process easier, what would you recommend for them on the event side? Why don't we start with Mike? I love you, Mike.
I think the main thing you've got to do is listen. You know, you can put on an event that you think is a good event, but not everyone is like you, and you've got to listen. And then, like we just did with our great social media question, you've got to be able to admit mistakes when you've made mistakes. You know, people want to deal with other people. They don't want to deal with corporations, which is why we try to make ReedPop a place where you can have access to the people who are running it. Like, the three of us will pick up our phone at any time, and the three of us are on Twitter, and we're talking to fans constantly. You just got to listen to the fans, and you've got to, you know, do what you can to execute what they want to see.
Awesome. Jim, what about you? What would be your one tip that you would have for planners?
I feel like is surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you. Like, the thing that I feel I did well was not putting on a show, was putting together a team of people who understood the things that needed to get done and are able to execute in a way that you're not able to, because I do not know everything, and I don't claim to. So being able to say, cool, I have an expert in this, or someone who has a knowledge base in that, is going to get you further than just thinking that you can just do everything on your own.
Absolutely. Awesome. And last but not least,
work with people that you like. I think it's good advice no matter what the hell you're doing, because, like, if you're not having fun, then go do something else. Do you know what I mean? Like then go work on Wall Street and make a shit ton of money and sell your soul. Like, if you're not around people you like, you're not having fun, and you're not enjoying yourself, then who really cares what you're doing? You know what I mean? So, and it's kind of like what Jim said. I mean, ideally, there's people you like that are also smart. That would be ideal. But have fun. You know, like, these are events. You're supposed to be fun. If you're not having fun, then, like, nobody else is either. So,
very true. Awesome. So to end the show, I want to share, you know, a little bit more knowledge from you guys. I'd love to hear about your guys' favorite resources, like either their blogs, articles, videos you've seen, books, pieces of tech, apps, anything that you guys want to share basically right now. If you guys want to share that sort of stuff, and if you guys have any links, to post them in the chat over on the right-hand side as we kind of go through them. But, you know, any favorite blogs or anything like apps, favorite food that you just recently discovered, anything. Do you guys have anything that you want to share? Funko Pops.
I'm looking up the title. I read a couple of great books by Lee Cockerell is his name, and he was the guy who put together essentially. He worked for Disney for 16 years and helped open Paris, Disneyland. His books are called Creating Magic, and also The Customer Rules. And there's a lot in those books about kind of, again, circling back to the exact thing that we're talking about, how, like, the reason that Disney does so well on a lot of things is they put the customer first. And there's so many things in those books that are great anecdotes and experiences and things that can change the way you think about how you put together an event, that I would highly recommend them.
Awesome. I love those books too. Super great books. And post them in the chat if anyone wants to click on them and buy them.
I think for event-specific stuff, I love reading whenever BizBash comes in the mail. Like, I think they do a great job, and it's not it doesn't typically follow what our events are, but it gives us some ideas of things that we want to do outside of our traditional trade shows, conventions. BizBash, and then I've gotten a lot of value over attending IAEE, which was last in DC when I attended it, but there's just some smart people there, and it's really easy to talk to people because everyone's in the same game. So I would recommend those two.
If you're thinking about building a business of any kind, like whether it's an event with your friends or just any other business, I always recommend going to look at Reed Hastings' deck on Netflix. He did a deck years ago on Netflix and their culture and stuff like that. And you can find it on SlideShare. And it's just a wonderful philosophy of how to build and like a good, innovative, open organization. And it's free. You don't have to buy it. And it's really good.
We'll see if I can get it.
Computer.
Boom. Awesome. Any other cool resources you guys want to share at all? Any shows you guys want to recommend people to go to if they want to see what you guys do?
I think the most accessible, kind of best one for people to see from us are Emerald City and C2E2. New York's not necessarily for the faint of heart anymore, but if you're close to Chicago or Seattle, I really think that those are the best representation of a good old-fashioned comic book show, and everyone's really accessible, and you can get into things, and it's not overwhelming, and both venues are good. So for us, I would recommend those, and something like PAX East if you're into gaming. Boston's got a great building, and PAX East is a wonderful show. So I would.
Awesome.
I know.
Totally agree.
I'm speaking for Jim because his laptop died, but I know he loves Heroes Con. Like it's one of his. He loves that show, and it's like he was talking about. It's a great kind of example of a pure comic show, which is a really fun one.
Awesome.
And then I have to say this, like Mike Armstrong and his very young child would really appreciate it if you bought a ticket to C2E2. It's got some aggressive goals to hit and, college fund to prepare for. So,
yes. Awesome.
That kid eats a lot of pureed bananas.
Oh my gosh, so good. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming here. You guys, absolutely awesome resources. If you guys want to just hang on for just a quick second as we kind of wrap up this show. First of all, thank you to everyone on the audience too, as well for attending. Massive audience today, for asking all the awesome questions. If you enjoyed this conversation, talking to these absolutely rock star event icons, you definitely want to tune in next week. Where I actually will not be the host of the show. I'm going to be in Panama, in the jungle. Hopefully I'm still alive when I get back. And Laura Lopez of Social Tables will be hosting and having a really awesome panel on event marketing and content marketing for events. So really, really cool. You definitely want to check that out. And tune in if you're watching the recording of this. I don't know why you're watching the recording. You should be here live like these guys are right now. And be sure to tune in every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on Blab. And if you love the show, just click my little subscribe button right there. My name, and you'll get notified every single time we do a show. And so that's kind of it. Want to wrap up the show and just thank you guys one more time. Huge thank you for being guests on the show today.
Our pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we'll catch you guys all later, and we'll see you next time on #Demonakos.